Have you ever felt that the world only values what it sees? This is Uita, a singer with a spectacular voice that the industry refused to showcase because of her looks. Public humiliation led her to a radical decision to disappear and undergo a total transformation. So let's start with the recap.
This great story revolves around Uita, a girl who works answering phone calls for an application designed for lonely men. Uita chose this job because looks weren't a requirement. All she needed was her voice to speak with clients and fulfill their fantasies. The good thing about this is that she doesn't need to use her real name, but an alias. And in this case, within the app, she uses the alias of Mawar. Although she's quite happy with the life she leads, she sometimes feels a bit depressed because her friends tease her about her weight, but she tries not to let that affect her. Right now, her main focus is earning money to help cover her father's medical bills. That's why every day Uita answers calls from various unusual men, among whom are some regular clients, like the case of this doctor who is fascinated with her voice. So every night, the man uses the application to have slightly saucy conversations. However, this isn't the only thing our protagonist does. Uita also has a great talent for singing, and singing is the hobby she loves the most. Because of this, she gets a daytime job at a record company where she works as a singer. However, there's one major detail about this job. Our dear Uita is a background singer because the company she works for only uses her voice as a replacement for a famous singer named Eva. Eva is promoted as a musical sensation, but despite her good looks, she isn't very nice, and her voice is not very pleasant. So when Eva sings on stage, it's actually Uita's voice that makes the venue always full. During her first performance, Uita unintentionally got carried away by the music and started dancing. But unfortunately, she tripped over the cables and couldn't keep singing, which almost caused a big problem. However, the issue was quickly resolved, and Uita managed to sing until the show finished. Nevertheless, this greatly annoyed Eva. So once the performance ended, she approached Uita and treated her in a very rude way for getting confused and almost ruining the show. She then began to insult Uita about her physical appearance. Uita tried to explain her mistake, but only managed to apologize for the misunderstanding. Just then, Andre, who is the musical producer, appeared. Eva, thinking he would congratulate her, ended up being ignored as the young man only approached Uita and thanked her for her hard work. This caused confusion for Uita because his words of gratitude and his hug made her feel something for him, and she thought he might like her. Putting that aside, Uita meets up at a restaurant with her best friend, Yara. Just so we're clear, Yara is not only her best friend, but also the person Uita tells everything to, like a sort of therapist. During dinner, while the waiter complained because Uita couldn't stop eating, she mentioned to her friend that she thought Andre was interested in her because he had hugged her after the event. Hearing this, Yara quickly denied it, saying that Andre has many beautiful women interested in him, and she doesn't think he would choose Uita over them because of her appearance. Seriously, what kind of friend is Yara? I'm left wondering if she's a friend or an enemy. Yara then advised her not to rush into love because men are all liars and she might run into one who takes advantage of her kindness. Hearing this, Uita fell silent, and an experience she had in the cast came to her mind back when she was in university. At that time, she liked a boy, but unfortunately, he only used her to pass some exams. And to top it off, he left her eating alone and went off with another girl. At that moment, Uita felt so depressed that she considered taking some pills to end her life, but fortunately she didn't.
Instead, she stayed asleep on the floor for a long time. And when her family found her, they thought something had happened to her. This is a sad memory for a protagonist, but she knows she needs to stay strong to care for her sick father. Later, once dinner was over, as both friends were walking home, they coincidentally ended up passing by a tattoo parlor. So they decided to get a symbol tattooed as a sign of their great friendship. Among all the designs available, Uita liked one called Hakuna Matata, which means everything will be fine. The next day, after finishing her work shift, Andre invited Uita to home together. He also invited her to his birthday party, which he would hold at a club. Naturally, Uita was delighted by the invitation and promised him that she would go. Next, she asked him to drop her off at a friend's apartment, but in reality, she went to visit her father, who was in a psychiatric hospital. hospital. This is something she keeps secret from everyone except Yara because she doesn't want others to know about her family's situation. It turns out, since the death of her mother, her father had been under a lot of stress, which led him to have mental health problems. Uita brought him to the psychiatric hospital hoping that at some point he could recover. But unfortunately, upon arriving, her father didn't recognize her and believed she was his wife. This, of course, saddened our girl who, despite his illness, always continued to love him and support him, working hard to cover his medical expenses. She also told him that she fulfilled her dream of becoming a singer. Additionally, she confessed that she likes her boss at work. That's why she asked him to pray for her so that Andre could become her life partner. And after asking her father, the next morning, Uita received a gift from Andre, which was a dress to wear to his birthday party, something that greatly surprised both her and her friend Yara. That night, Uita attended Andre's party, wearing the dress he had given her. And so she wouldn't feel alone, she decided to invite Yara to accompany her. Upon arriving, Uita went straight to greet Andre and wish him happy birthday. But then, Richard, Andre's older brother, asked Uita to take off her coat, which she did without hesitation, revealing her figure. And precisely at that moment, everything turned chaotic because Eva arrived wearing the exact same dress as Uita. It turned out Eva knew about the dress Andre had given Uita, and being a malicious person, she bought the same one on purpose to make fun of her, implying that she was the one who should wear it. Faced with this, Uita felt terrible, and so she decided it was best to leave the party. Andre couldn't stand seeing Uita humiliated in front of everyone, so he showed his anger to Eva. However, Eva took it as a joke because she didn't want Uita near him. Well, this made Andre furious, and he reminded Eva that it's thanks to Uita that she is at the top. Otherwise, she'd be nobody. He also clarified that Uita has a beautiful voice, but because she isn't considered beautiful and doesn't have a great body, she isn't taken into account. But if she were, she could become a very famous singer. Unfortunately, Uita overheard their argument and misinterpreted Andre's words, believing he was defending Eva. This made Uita see herself only as an ugly, overweight woman compared to Eva, who looked sculpted by the gods. After this, our girl planned to take a large number of pills to stop suffering. But just as she was about to do something crazy, her computer started ringing. It turned out she received a call from her gating job, connecting her with a regular client whom we'll call the doc. This call gave her a great idea.
The next day, Uita decided to go to a beauty clinic with the intention of changing her appearance. She spoke with the plastic surgeon, Dr. Eric. During the consultation, Uita realized that plastic surgery could be very expensive, and realizing she didn't have much money, she tried to negotiate with the doctor to pay in installments. But unfortunately, the doctor wasn't keen on that and rejected her request, asking her to leave the clinic. Nevertheless, determined to change her appearance, Uita revealed a secret. It turns out that the doctor who always called her through the dating application was none other than Dr. Eric, a very regular client. At that moment, the doc was surprised to discover that the woman in front of him was the same person from the application known as Mawar. With this, Uita had the advantage, so she asked the doc to help her with her transformation into a slender woman. With no other option, the doctor had to accept Uita's proposal. On the other hand, that night, Uita went to see her father since she wouldn't be seeing him for a while. They stayed, dancing under the stars for a long time. A few days later, the moment arrived. Uita was about to undergo her life-changing surgery, and consequently she kept her operation a secret and disappeared without a word. This left Andre confused, as without Uita continuing to propel Eva towards fame, it would be a rather complicated task. As a result of not having Uita, all of Eva's performances had to be cancelled, and the recording of her album was postponed until they could find someone with a voice similar to Uita's. Eva, for her part, was pulling her hair out because she couldn't release her album when she wanted, so she was determined to find Uita's whereabouts. She went to our protagonist's apartment and managed to get in pretending to be her sister, but she didn't find her there. However, she discovered a document that indicated the location of the hospital where her father was. At that moment, Eva thought of visiting Uita's father to get information about her whereabouts, suspecting that she might have gone to visit him. With this new clue, Eva, along with Andre, went
to visit Uita's father, hoping to learn something about her location. But once they arrived, they discovered that Uita's father couldn't communicate due to his mental disorder. So without getting any clues, they both left the hospital feeling disappointed. On the other hand, a few months later, we see that our protagonist's surgery was a complete success and the results were amazing. Now, Uita had transformed into a beautiful woman with an ideal body, and this made her gain self-confidence. So after a few months of recovering in the hospital, Uita decided to visit a shopping mall where she captivated every man who passed by her side. While walking through the mall, she unexpectedly ran into Andre and Eva. It turns out that Eva was no longer a singer and had dedicated herself to selling kitchen products, something that greatly surprised our protagonist. Since she was still thinking of Andre, she decided to follow him to a car dealership. As she intended to go and talk to him, suddenly a salesman approached her asking if she was willing to buy a car. Since the young man was captivated by Uita's beauty, she took the moment, and I'm not sure if she bought the car or it was given to her, but either way, we soon see her driving her new car.
But like a complete amateur, Uita ended up crashing into a taxi driver who got out furious because his car was hit, but upon looking up and seeing Uita, his anger vanished, and instead he fell in love with her beauty. The same thing happened with the police officer who arrived at the scene. Both were captivated, but when he asked our girl for her driver's license and saw her identification photo, he had no choice but to go to the police station to clarify the confusion. In this way, after a few months, Uita was reunited with Yara at the police station, since she somehow had to prove she was Uita. However, since her appearance had changed so much, Yara was quite confused. But there was one thing that could make it clear that she was the real Uita, the tattoo they had both gotten as a symbol of their friendship. So after the incident, both friends went to dinner. While at the restaurant, Yara told her that the release of Eva's album had been delayed because they hadn't found a voice suitable like hers. Hearing this, Uita considered auditioning again to be Eva's voice and also to be near Andre. Just then, Yara's boyfriend, a young man named Risky, suddenly appeared. When Yara wanted to introduce her friend to mark a new beginning in Uita's life, she introduced her by the name of Angelica. Well, it turns out that Risky sells weight loss products. That's why he constantly insists that Yara use them, because he supposedly sees her as overweight. While Risky was on a call, Uita found out what Risky was doing to her, so she advised her not to keep taking those pills, as she believed Yara's body was ideal and consuming them would be harmful. For her part, Yara began to have doubts after hearing this, but she felt obligated to take them because Risky wanted it that way. Putting that aside, the next day, Uita decided to audition to become Eva's voice, but she chose to go there under the name of Angelica. Our girl displayed all her talents for singing, and to everyone's surprise, she passed and officially became part of the company as Angelica. Angelica's beauty and excellent voice caught the attention of Andre and Richard, who wanted to promote her as a new singer and not just Eva's shadow. In this way, both of them tried to persuade their father, who was the owner of the company, to name Angelica as the new singer. Sadly, their idea was initially rejected because their father believed that only Eva had the potential to be a famous and attractive singer. However, Andre and Richard persisted in convincing their father that Angelica had a unique charm that would attract all men. Seeing their son's determination, the man finally agreed to make her the new singer. This marked the beginning of Uita's musical phase as Angelica, creating her first single and music video. The first single was released and distributed everywhere, and to everyone's surprise, the song unexpectedly climbed to #1 on the charts for the best songs in Indonesia. As expected, when Eva saw Angelica's music video, she exploded with rage, and a rivalry was created between the two singers. That's why she once more tried to locate Uita by visiting her father in the psychiatric hospital, hoping to find out about her whereabouts.
When she arrived at the hospital, she contacted Andre to tell him she was looking for Uita so they could launch her second album as soon as possible. However, this annoyed the young man, and he advised Eva to focus on improving her singing skills and to stop depending on another person. Eva did not like hearing this at all and got angry with Andre. Yet, in the middle of her anger, Uita's father gave her a piece of advice, which Uita pondered. On the other hand, Uita recorded her second song, but her performance didn't quite measure up. So Andre showed her a video of Uita's audition for her to take as an example, something that left our protagonist speechless, since Andre doesn't know it's her. Next, Andre instructed her to listen to Uita and copy her emotional style, which, in his opinion, made the song sound more passionate. At this, Uita asked if she should sing like the woman in the video, but Andre clearly misunderstood Angelica's thoughts about Uita. So he immediately scolded her, telling her that Uita is a very special person to him. This revelation deeply touched our protagonist, as she had just learned that Andre considers her an important person in his life. She felt remorse for having deceived him. The next day, our girl intended to confess that she was Uita, so she decided to speak with Yara to get her opinion. However, Yara told her to be careful, because not all men accept women who have undergone plastic surgery. These words ended up offending Uita and caused an argument. During the dispute, our girl accused her friend of letting her boyfriend use her to sell those products and lose weight. This was something Yara wouldn't tolerate, so she burst into tears and left. However, Yara's statements that not all men like women with surgery turned out to be true, because later, when Uita met with Andre, he confirmed it. He doesn't like women who have had surgery. He prefers women who are natural. So, in light of his words, our protagonist decided not to tell him the truth. On the other hand, the next day, as Uita arrived at the office to work, she overheard Eva practicing her voice in the studio. Out of curiosity, she decided to approach Eva, and they ended up having a conversation in which Uita gave her advice. Not just any advice, but the very same words her father had told Eva. Putting that aside, a few days later, Uita unfortunately received an urgent call. It turned out that Yara had been rushed to the hospital after taking a lot of slimming pills. To make matters worse, this happened on the same day Uita had her TV date scheduled. But our girl prioritized visiting her friend at the hospital. When she arrived, the doctor informed her that Yara's life was truly in danger from consuming those pills. That's why he severely warned Yara to stop using those products, or she wouldn't be so lucky next time. Naturally, Uita couldn't contain herself upon seeing her friend in this state, knowing her boyfriend had manipulated her into consuming that drug. To make matters worse, Risky showed up at the hospital. As expected, Uita couldn't contain her anger and chastised Risky for having manipulated her friend. She severely warned him to stay away from Yara and not to try to sell her those pills again. The young man had no choice but to hang his head.
After the incident, our girl stayed close to her friend to help her recover. Once Uita made sure her friend was fine, she returned to the studio to finally make her debut on television. Her first appearance was a flawless performance. Everyone loved her songs, and Angelica was now recognized as a true singer. Andre was fascinated with Angelica's work, which is why he decided to celebrate with her and take her to dinner. Once they were alone, Andre intended to make a move on our girl, but at that exact moment, he left the place because he received a call from his father. Uita stayed waiting for him and began to draw the musical note she has tattooed on her waist on a piece of paper. Suddenly, she began to feel sleepy and fell asleep right there. When Andre returned, he saw what she had drawn on the paper and finally discovered the truth about who Angelica really was. He remembered that symbol on the paper was the same one found in a song notebook that Uita owned.
A few days later, Andre and his brother organized a party to celebrate the success of Angelica's first album. However, we see that Andre seemed distant from our girl because he felt betrayed by her. And without anyone expecting it, Eva, the big viper that she is, suddenly appeared with a supposed admirer of Angelica. This obviously surprised Hida because when she saw him, she realized it was her father. Faced with this, she remained in shock, silent, and unable to react. To put it simply, she felt like a stranger to her own father. This attitude annoyed Yara, who quickly intervened and took Yida's father away. After the incident, our protagonist met with Andre to finally confess the whole truth. But to her surprise, he already knew who Angelica really was. Yida apologized to him and explained why she had pretended to be someone else. Then, with tears in her eyes, she confessed that she did all this because she overheard the conversation he had with Eva, in which Andre had said that if Yida were beautiful and had a good body, she could be a singer. As expected, those words hurt our poor girl's heart, and she was tired of being ridiculed for her excess weight. That's why she admitted that what she did was wrong, but concluded by explaining that she did it to improve her life. Following Yida's confession, Andre felt terrible and tried to comfort her, but it was too late. Yida decided to leave for home, as a long day awaited her tomorrow. She was going to have her first concert.
One thing to add is that the next day marked the end of the Angelica persona. When Yida stepped onto the stage to start her concert, her father unexpectedly appeared and walked up to the stage to join the choreography. Richard tried to pull Yida off the stage, but instead she stopped the concert and allowed her father to stay. Taking advantage of the moment, Yida apologized to her fans and revealed her true identity. She also shared with them parts of her life, including her struggles with weight and the suffering from the ridicule she received. But despite those difficulties and challenges, she followed her dream of becoming a singer. She initially started as a backing vocalist, but now she wants to give her all. That's not all, because she also introduced her father, who is in this state because he is still mourning the loss of his wife. Yuta's moving confession truly touched the hearts of everyone present. As a result, they united and decided to support her on her journey to becoming a successful singer. As expected, with the passage of time, Yuita achieved her dream of becoming a singer. And that's not all, because her love with Andre also blossomed. Meanwhile, on the other hand, Eva went from being a singer to a YouTuber, creating content about life in the streets. But unfortunately, she ran into trouble with the authorities and was caught by the police. And that's how the summary of 200 Pounds Beauty ends. This story conveys that the true path to success should not be conditioned by physical appearance, but by authenticity, effort, and confidence in one's own talent. Although it sometimes seems that fulfilling our dreams depends on fitting certain standards, what should truly stand out is what we carry inside, the thing that makes us unique. That's why true transformation happens when you learn to value yourself, understanding that potential and happiness come from recognizing your own worth regardless of appearance.
If you liked it, please don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any other recap. Until next time!